We aim to address the following question. Well, the concept of qi in Chinese philosophy has been very carefully studied. There is a less explored dimension of qi, namely its temporality. This temporal dimension can be understood through small time cycles known as hou. Traditionally, these hou have often been interpreted as part of Chinese calendar, which philosophers and historians have tended to overlook. And in particular, when comparing Chinese theories of qi with the Western helomorphism, as in Aristotelianism, qi is often conceptualized as something like a matter. I think it is still important to discern and articulate the temporal dimension of qi. And closely related to the central theme of today's workshop is the fact that knowledge about hou and qi is frequently embodied in diagrams. I will begin by outlining our approach to examine those diagrams and the background of how knowledge about hou was shaped in early China. And following this, we will discuss how hou were understood as actions. This section is primarily contributed by my collaborator Mengmeng. Finally, I will go into two key examples: diagrams of the 70 hou in the context of medicine and agriculture. These are not typical contexts for discussions of natural philosophy, but I believe they are worth noting. I believe that many of our colleagues at this workshop have already noticed some excellent recent scholarship on diagrams, such as the volume, The Diagram as Paradigm. This volume brings together a wide range of materials and raises questions about the functions of diagrams. The contributors propose several dimensions to consider, including cognitive, informational, and socio-political functions. In our research, we seek to investigate what kind of actions that these hou diagrams entails or anticipates from their uses. Here, we want to argue that the relationship between the hou diagrams and their users is not merely one of reading. Before we go into these topics, I think it is essential to understand the background of how the concept of qi as temporal flux or as temporal cycles was formed in early China. A prominent genre in this regard is monthly ordinances, or yueling, which describes the seasonal and monthly characteristics of time, including climatic, phenological, and astronomical phenomena. At the same time, these texts provide instructions telling people on what actions to undertake. One of the key examples of this genre appears in the Confucian classic Records of Rites. However, this is not the only early monthly ordinances text. For instance, the small calendar of the Xia dynasty offers another example. Additionally, the Lost Book of Zhou includes a work called Interpretations of Times and Seasons. The origins of this genre have been extensively studied by East Asian scholars. An influential view suggests that this genre emerged as a synthesis of a practical text reflecting everyday experience and ritual manuals instructing rulers on governance. And some historians of philosophy have argued that this synthesis was the work done by yin-yang theorists during the warring state periods. And geographically, some scholars propose there are three regional variants in early China: the Eastern, the Southern, and Western. And it is worth noting here that at least within the southern system of the monthly ordinances, evidence confirms the existence of diagrammatic representations of this temporal system. For instance, the so-called Chu silk manuscript, which is dated to the mid to late warring states period, provides a compelling example. This manuscript featured a central text surrounded by circularly arranged text and illustrations. And this arrangement is very intuitive because it effectively represents the cyclical structure of time. What role then do qi and hou play in these monthly ordinances? Firstly, the various literature or text included in the Confucian canon, qi already appears as an explanans for seasonal changes. However, it is consistently qualified by modifiers. They are referenced to as qi of yin, qi of yang, qi of cold, qi of warmth, qi of heaven, qi of earth. Nowhere do we see qi used independently, unqualified per se. I believe this is a significant phenomenon, suggesting that within this knowledge tradition, the terminology of qi had not yet fully stabilized. What has been firmly established, however, was the units of time. Early texts, like the interpretations of times and seasons, organize seasonal phenomena into 5-day interval. For instance, in describing the onset of spring, it reads, on the day of the beginning of the spring, the east wind melts the ice. 5 days later, hibernating creatures awaken. Another 5 days later, and it goes on like that. This sequential listing of phenomena in 5-day units constitute throughout the text, and resulting in a total of 72 such intervals. Each 5-day unit is later referred to as hou, and every 3 hou comprise 1 jieqi, meaning a segment of qi. There are accordingly 24 jieqi in total. In modern literature, jieqi is often translated as solar terms and hou as pentads. And in this framework, we might say that hou manifests qi. Compared to the relatively abstract concept of qi, hou is far more tangible and accessible. They are easier to perceive and understand. Here we would like to emphasize that while hou is indeed a unit of time, the word itself can also be functioned as a verb. Historically, these two meanings were rarely connected. They were often treated as simply as a common case of a polysemy. However, we propose that there is a link between hou as an action and hou as a temporal unit, a link that is relevant to understand how people conceptualize the watching of qi. This visualization of the temporality of qi involves two parallel practices. One is hou qi, or waiting for qi, and the creation of diagrams on qi and hou. And in traditional Chinese philological works, explanations of hou as a verb focus on two main meanings. The first being to watch. However, this watching is not just a general watching. An authoritative dictionary defines hou as watching in a way that involves waiting. We interpret this to mean that hou signifies waiting with expectation and thereby perceiving the arrival of something within a continuous process of movement. When the object of when its object is qi, it introduces an important practice closely tied to ancient Chinese cosmology, which is hou qi, or waiting for qi. It is essential components of the ancient Chinese calendar system. And the theory behind hou qi involves a broader cosmological framework that claims music and calendar are one. In music, there are 12 pitch pipes that define the standard pitch of Chinese music. Among them, the pipe named Huangzhong is the longest one and serves as the foundation of all other pitch pipes. In the Book of Han, the author elaborates on the connections between different measurements, explaining that all standards of measurements are derived from the length of the Huangzhong pitch pipe. And within this cosmology, the 12 pitch pipes could also be used to determine the timing of qi within the 24 solar terms, which is the basis for the hou qi activity. The theory and practice of this method were first recorded in the Book of Later Han in the 15th century. The process begins with constructing a secret room with 3 layers of walls and with certain directional orientations. Inside the innermost part of the room, a wooden table here is placed, upon which 12 pitch pipes are arranged in a specific order. The ends of these pipes are filled with reed ash. 3 days before the solar term begins, the practitioner enters the room to wait for the arrival of qi. When the qi arrives, it will blow the reed ash from one of these pipes corresponding to that particular solar term. The whole qi activity is typically carried out during the winter solstice and the summer solstice as a part of a larger ritual ceremonies held by the imperial. These activities must be coordinated with each other. If they align, all is well, and if they fail to align, a divination must be performed. Here we translate Ho as waiting, which implies a certain understanding of the Ho Qi activity. Before elaborating on this interpretation, I think we should point out that another common translation of Ho is to observe. This translation tends to frame Ho Qi as an experiment, emphasizing its resemblance to modern scientific methods of verifying theories about qi. In this interpretation, the difficulties faced by the Ho Qi activity in late imperial China can be understood. The lack of repeatability and which led to failure. However, this interpretation does not fully account for why Ho Qi was practiced repeatedly in a number of dynasties without being questioned. The term waiting emphasizes that the flow of qi occurs before a human observation, which aligns with the scene in which Ho Qi, where certain people wait in the secret room in advance for the arrival of qi. When the reed ash does not move and fails to align with other components of the ritual, no one is concerned with whether the theoretical framework is correct or not. Rather, the focus is on the divinatory significance of this situation. In the process of waiting for qi to arrive, there is no objectification of qi due to human observation. It is clear that this situation underwent significant changes in later centuries. We have the transformation from waiting for qi to the observing qi. That is a story to be explored. To summarize again, Ho as an action refers to a form of waiting for an anticipated event, and thus inherently carries temporal connotations. At the same time, this waiting initially does not imply the objectification of qi. It is distinct from observation, as it does not involve testing whether an observed phenomenon aligns with a particular theory. When Ho comes to be understood as a specific natural phenomenon within seasonal cycles, and after diagrams of Ho begin to appear, we have a key question. Do the users of these diagrams still retain or partially retain the epistemology that characterized the earlier conceptualization of Ho as an action? We argue yes. The users of these diagrams do not appear as mere observers or verifiers of isolated facts. Rather, they are engaged in a form of waiting for the entire cycle to unfold, not focused on individual isolated occurrences. This interpretation will help us better understand certain characteristics of these diagrams. The types of diagrams appear across various knowledge traditions. Firstly, they are prominent in a theoretical interpretation of the Book of Change. There was an interpretation that links the solar terms or 72 Hou to the 64 hexagram or the gua of the Book of Change. This approach is known as Guaqi theory. And at this workshop, Shixiang will deliver a talk on this topic. And I believe his work will be more in depth than ours. So we will not expand on it here. Another two contexts that are often understood as practical are those of medicine and agriculture. We will showcase two diagrams from the 12th to the 14th centuries. We believe they will be particularly interesting in this context. Let us begin with the medical example. This involves the theory of Yunqi that developed in medieval China. I will try to summarize its theoretical principles as concisely as possible. The Yunqi theory is used to explain the relationship between time, seasons, and the occurrence of disease and disasters. Yun is determined by the 10 heavenly stems, while qi is determined by the 12 earthly branches. These stems and branches can be combined in a specific way to form 60 pairs used for denoting years of months. For instance, this year is labeled as Jiang, and the upcoming December will be Yihai, where Jia and Yi are the heavenly stems, and Chen and Hai are earthly branches. Within each year, Qi is again divided into 6 steps, each corresponding to 2 months. And this structure is called the host qi, which is the same every year. However, if each year were the same, there would be no qualitative differences between years. The differences are explained through what is known as the Geist qi. The Geist qi assigns a specific attribute to earthly branches of each month. And through a certain arrangement, we can determine what impacts a given year and month may have on individuals' health. This theory has had early roots in Chinese medicine, and by the 11th century, it had evolved into a more sophisticated theory with dedicated treatises. The process of judging and determination involves very sophisticated combinations and reasonings. So in the 12th century, the emperor of Northern Song dynasty gathered the most renowned physicians from across the country and compiled a medical compendium entitled Shengji Zonglu. At the beginning of this work, the authors gave the Yunqi patents for 60 years. That is to systematically listing out all possible combinations. This resulted in 60 diagrams, each accompanied by extensive annotations. The diagrams themselves look something like this. These are disc-shaped diagrams with several layers in each. At the very center is the statement of the overall characteristics of the year. And the first outer ring contains the 12 months, along with their corresponding heavenly stems and the earthly branches. In the next layer, descriptions of the various Geist qi are presented, and the outermost layer contains the 24 solar terms and the 72 hou. In all these diagrams, the enumeration of the 72 hou is identical. The only difference lies in the central part of the diagram. This variable portion part, this variable part means the different combinations and attributes of qi for each year and month. Here, I think it is worth noting that the explanatory role of the 70 hou, or precisely the lack of such a role, even in the extensive annotations to these diagrams, references to hou are extremely sparse. Their role is really marginal. Instead, the hou seems to be to function more as a part of an environment rather than as an active explanans. When physicians assess the influence of a year on the occurrence of diseases, these seasonal phenomena do not require verification or detailed explanation. Their role is not to be verified, but almost as just a background to the more central medical concerns. The second example comes from the 14th century, from Wang Zhen, who is an official during the Yuan dynasty under Mongol rule. And we know little about his life, but he authored a treatise called Agriculture Book, which is very modestly titled. The work is divided into three parts. The first is a general principle, a general discussion of principles in agriculture. The second focuses on tools, and the third on various crops. In the beginning section of the first part, Wang emphasized that the most crucial principle of agriculture is an understanding of seasonal cycles. He summarizes the history of the understanding of seasons and calendars, and after concluding this historical overview, he raises an interesting question. Why have these essential agriculture concepts never been represented in diagrams? He then proudly presents a diagram he calls the diagram of seasonal allocation. He further explains that the months, the solar terms, the whole form a ring or like a wheel, and that various agricultural activities must be timed according to these cycles. In his view, the growth of a natural phenomenon is due to the influence of qi, but this generative qi itself is derived from time. So where do the whole appear in this diagram? The answer is that they are placed in the middle circle, marked in blue, while the outermost rings contains agriculture instructions, such as this is the time for brewing wine. It is crucial to know that there is no logical connection between the 72 whole and these agriculture activities. For example, the instruction about brewing wine corresponds to the whole, which states mother hen begins to hatch chicks. There is no substantive connection between them. Once again, the 72 whole do not serve as an explanans or any causative role, and they do not need to be validated or observed by those who engage in agriculture job. Instead, they provide a temporal framework within which activities are to be carried out, but without any deeper causal explanation. And finally, I would like to summarize some observations. The whole, as a result of differentiation of temporal qi, can be arranged in a cyclical manner within diagrams. They are necessary, but with a very limited role. The statements about this whole shows a remarkable stability across different knowledge traditions. The viewers of these diagrams do not need to act as observers of this seasonal phenomenon, nor do they need to be verifiers in the modern sense. There are many elements in the descriptions of the whole that go against the common sense. For example, in the third whole of the second month, it is stated that the eagles transform into doves, and in the second whole of the third month, field mice turn into quail. These statements have never been questioned, even by agriculture experts. This situation is not merely due to the reverence for classical authority. We suggest that in these cases, the parallelism with whole qi activity is worth noting. The whole as an action might be one of the keys to understanding the objectified whole that we see in these diagrams. I believe there are still many unanswered questions, but we must stop here. We greatly value the feedback from our colleagues, whether from Western or Chinese perspectives, because we believe it will definitely help us further address these questions. Thank you for attention.